Hello, kings, queens, and all those in between. I know it's been a while, but I am finally back. And today we're going to be doing something quite interesting. Autistic person ranks autistic characters. Because yes, for those that don't know, I am autistic. It's not something I try and hide, I've got it in my YouTube subscription, but I obviously don't bring it up all the time also. Now, I think the main thing we need to kind of lay out is what I'm going to be ranking these characters on. Firstly, obviously, are they good representation? Because, representation is obviously important, and, that's kind of the whole point of ranking autistic characters. But I'm also going to be ranking them on whether or not I just like them as characters, because it's good to have good autistic representation, but then it's also good for that representation to be within a good character, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, and one more thing, I will be including headcanons and actually confirmed autistic characters. So, I guess I should also run over what each tier means. So, S would be like, they get both things perfect. They're a really good character and they're really good representation. A would be like, they get one of those things perfect, and then the other thing is okay to good, it's alright. B would kind of be, they do both those things very averagely, they're an okay character and that okay representation. C would be, they do one of those things atrociously, like they're either a really bad character or really bad representation, and then the other one they kind of just do an okay job at. And then F, don't ask me why we're jumping straight to F, I just like F to be the bottom tier. F would be, they do both those things terribly, they're a terrible character, terrible representation. Okay, so I'm having to literally do this in iBiz Paint because I downloaded a tier maker app thing, and I just found out that it cost a lot, so I'm definitely not paying. But I'm sorry, I feel like this intro is already too long, so I'm gonna stop wasting your time now. Our first character, as you can see, is, I believe her name is Norma, from Dead End Paranormal Park. I really like Norma in terms of autistic representation. I love the fact that she's never actually confirmed to be autistic in the show, I'm pretty sure, but you can tell, it shows anxiety and the different and the different uncomfortable situations autistic people might find themselves in. It's great. Also, it's really good to get some POC autistic representation, obviously, because a lot of times autistic people are presented as white men. In terms of her as a character, she's also really fun. I really like her. Also, a fun fact about this show, I believe it recently got cancelled by conservatives for trans in your kids or whatever, but I literally started watching it a week before that massive Twitter thing happened. So if you are a fan of this show, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure I'm somehow the reason it got all that backlash. But where should I put Norma? I think I'm gonna put her in A, probably. I think as a character, I really like her. She's fun. I thought she was very interesting. Again, great autistic representation. I do think maybe there's a tiny bit stronger, but that's more just my personal taste. You really can't fault Norma as a character or as autistic representation. Okay, so next up we have Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. I think he's definitely interested in autistic representation. Later on in this video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite characters, Obed. And the interesting thing about Rick Sanchez and Obed, I believe they were both created by Dan Harmon, and I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, so don't quote me on this, but I believe Dan Harmon is autistic, and he actually discovered that by writing for both those characters, which is pretty fun. But Rick, in terms of his character, I do quite like him. I quite enjoy him. I'm one of the people who believes Rick and Morty hasn't quite fallen off. I just believe it's very inconsistent. But yeah, he's fun, and I can also appreciate those moments where we get a deeper look into his character and how he feels isolated. In terms of him as autistic representation, I think it's hard because you could argue maybe it's a bit more subtle than Norma's autism, potentially. And I guess he could come across as a bit of an asshole, he pushes people away, but we also see that's to do with his trauma a lot, and not only to do with his autistic representation. I don't know, this is quite hard. I think what I'm gonna do, I think him as a character is pretty good. I think he deserves A for just his character alone. His autistic representation is fine, so I think I'm going to put him in A and move Norma up to S, because honestly she's really good at representation. So now we have the updated list. I honestly don't know why I didn't put Norma in S straight away. She is a really good representation and a pretty good character as well. Next up we have this guy from the IT crowd. I'm gonna be 100% real with you guys. I haven't watched the IT crowd in 5 years. I'm not even 100% sure what this character's name is. I should probably look it up, to be honest. I'd like to take a quick break to please ask you, if you are enjoying the video, to subscribe, because it really helps out small channels, and I would really really appreciate it. Also, I'm also another minority. Oh, gasp, I know. I am non-binary, so if you'd like to see me also rank non-binary characters, I think that could be quite fun. Let me know in the comments. Okay, so apparently his name is Maurice Moss. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But yeah, now later on, oh sorry, I'm just moving the camera back. Now later on, I'm obviously going to talk about Sheldon and kind of maybe put him quite low. You could almost argue Maurice, is how you pronounce his name, is like in quite a similar boat where he's obviously in like a sitcom which is supposed to be more comedic. So you could potentially make the argument that he's supposed to be like a parody of autistic people, like making fun of them in a certain way. But like, I don't know, I kind of like am fine to let it like slide more with Maurice because I remember him being quite funny, and this show in general, I remember it being quite funny. And there might have been a transphobic episode actually, now that I think about it, that probably wasn't the best. But yeah, like him as a character, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have put him on this list because again, it's been ages since I watched the IT Crowd, but I don't feel like I need to say too much on like every single character. Again, like I remember, I guess he's kind of like quirky and like odd, I guess you would describe it, which you could say is like a bit stereotypical of autistic people. And like, is he even autistic or is that just like headcanons? There's like obviously a bit to discuss with him. I don't know, because now like two ways to take it, where he's like actually like a funny and enjoyable character, but then also like, is he a bit like stereotypical, but then also is that like the fans kind of putting that stereotype onto him? And there's a lot to discuss with him, and ultimately I do think it just averages him out in being in a B. So ultimately I do think that's where I'm going to put him. Also, I did not plan for the first three to be S, A, B, that's just a fun coincidence. Okay, so our next character to rank is Marcy from Amphibia. I watched Amphibia within the last like 2 or 3 years, so I can actually talk about this character. Firstly, Marcy is just like a really fun, cool character. I like when she like dies at the end of season like 2, and then she has like that weird like robotic helmet and she kind of becomes like the villain, I believe. I still haven't watched it that recently, so I don't remember everything, but yeah. But in terms of her autistic representation, she's really good. Again, like, I think it's a bit more headcanon. Actually, I believe the creator did comment on this, and they said that they never intended for her to be autistic, but they obviously don't mind like fans having that interpretation, which I think is like quite cool and like validating. But the one thing I want to talk about in terms of Marcy's autistic representation, in like a lot of media, when it shows like autistic struggles, like I feel like it kind of comes off as a bit like weird and like wrong, I guess is the best way I could describe it, where like it kind of shows like, oh, look at how hard autistic people's lives are. But Marcy's character kind of shows a really good like autistic struggle in like quite a natural way, which like I kind of related to, because I could be slightly misremembering this, but basically if you don't know the plot of Amphibia, like these 3 girls from like the real world, they get transported into like a world where everyone's frogs and like amphibians basically, and we see like these 3 people, they were like good friends back in the real world. However, we see like sometimes they can get a bit burnt out on Marcy because she can be so like obsessed with these things that it kind of like takes over. And as somebody who gets like really obsessed with like some of the TV shows that I'm even talking about in this video, like I definitely like related to that and thought that portrayed that very well. Like Marcy's just also like a really fun character. I wish she was introduced a little earlier, because if I remember correctly, wasn't she only introduced like late season 1, potentially even early season 2, and there's only 3 seasons of that show for those who don't know. So yeah, but ultimately, where should I put her? Okay, she's a pretty solid character, she's pretty solid representation. I kind of want to put it in A, but I don't know if I'm making the same mistake which I did with Norma, where I like put Norma in A and then I was like, no, that doesn't really make much sense, she needs to go high. Ultimately, I have decided to keep her in A for now, but like I really wouldn't be mad if like people argue to move her up or whatever. Also, there is a lot of really good like POC autistic representation on this list, which is obviously great. I feel like I need to like not spend ages talking about like all these characters because we've still got a decent few to rank. But next up we have Luce from the Owl House. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe Luce has been confirmed to be some sort of neurodiverse, but I'm not sure if it was specifically said if she's like autistic or ADHD or like what she is, which sounds a bit weird to say, but yeah. But yeah, I'd argue Luce can't go like super high on this list because I would say she's probably one of the more subtle ones on this list. Like, I'm not sure if I picked up on it as much. Again, you kind of have what could be seen as like problematic depending on how it's done. Like, she's like the outcast and like the quirky one. We see that in her school, but then I kind of don't mind it as much because like it's kind of part of her character arc to like learn how to fit in and stuff, I guess you could say, sort of. I guess the other big part of her character, which is like autistic coded, is kind of her obsession with like those fantasy books. I forgot what they're called, but yeah, as I've talked about in this video, I can definitely relate. Like, that's probably my biggest autistic trait, is like how obsessed with like different forms of media I get. Ultimately, as I said, I might have to start going through these a bit quicker, but I think Luce is a solid A tier. Don't worry, guys. Later in the video, we will be getting some drama. We will be getting characters that I am going to be ranking quite low. But does that continue with the next character, who is L from Death Note? I don't know. I feel like L's an interesting one. I feel like a lot of the characters I've talked about in this video have this thing in common where they're almost treated as like quirky and unique, and that definitely can be a part of like autistic behavior patterns and stuff. You know, we can have some like strange ways, I guess. Like, and like, I don't mean to insult like the Japanese culture or whatever, but I have heard like they're not as open to like talk about neurodivergencies and like mental health. Again, I could be completely wrong on that, but this is just what I've heard. So I do wonder if like L is if L is canonically autistic, or if that's kind of just a headcanon autistic fans put on him. Ultimately, I love L as a character. I love Death Note, really like well-written series. I also do not think that the second half fell off as hard as people say. Is it worse than the first half? Yes, but is it terrible and ruined the whole show? Absolutely not. It's actually pretty good. Ultimately, I don't really have much to say on L's autism. Like, it's definitely portrayed in that more like unique, quirky way. To be fair, like, you definitely could read that, like, a lot of the things he does, you could argue, like, are autistic traits. Like, autistic people like to have stuff in certain ways. The A is getting quite full, but I don't know if I can really negotiate L being at a B. Because if we go back to the categories, A is like, they do one thing really well and then one thing just okay. Like, the two things obviously being how much I like them as a character and then autistic representation. I think L does like okay autistic representation, but then I quite like him as a character. So I do think he needs to go in A. That's kind of like the downside, I guess, of doing this on iBiz Paint. Like, the columns aren't going to get any bigger, so I can only realistically have like 5 people in a column. Oh, okay, so next up we have a controversial one, Sheldon. Now, the funny part about Sheldon is I'm pretty sure, like, if you've watched the show, you know he's supposed to be like a parody of autistic people. But then, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is the vibes I get. I'm pretty sure the writers came out and said, hey, Sheldon is not autistic, he doesn't have a diagnosis. And so, like, the kind of, like, vibe I get from that is, like, they were like, let's, like, do this parody of autistic people, and then it's like, oh, everyone hates it. Oh, no, he was actually never autistic. But I actually talked about to my mum about this, who is autistic as well, and she actually quite likes his representation. She basically said she thinks it's like very true with like how he has like certain ways he wants to do things. Like, he obviously has the one sport, I believe, that he always likes to sit in, and I believe there's something about he always likes to knock 3 times, and like, I can relate to that to a certain extent, but I think it's all about, like, the writer's intent, and was that to generally show, like, autistic people and, like, certain traits they have, or was it just to make the audience go, haha, that's funny and dumb, basically? And retroactively, that kind of makes me want to move, like, Maurice down, I believe that was his name, because I believe he's also kind of like that, where the writers just kind of want us to go, haha, look at that dumb autistic person, but I don't really know. I think I'm going to leave Maurice in F for now, but ultimately, I do think Sheldon should go in F. I wish I had more time to explain my thoughts, but again, I don't want this video to be super long. I'm pretty sure everyone kind of knows like why Sheldon's not the best autistic representation, really, kind of just making fun of autistic people. So yeah, there you go, there's Sheldon in the F. I just realised our last 2 characters I also quite like, so this has been a pretty positive video. But next up we do have Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls. I feel like with these characters, some of them I'm saying their full names and what show they're from, some of them are just saying their first name. I feel like it's all over the place. But I love Mabel. She's probably like my favourite character in Gravity Falls, and I hate the fact that apparently within the Gravity Falls fan base now are people that really dislike her and find her annoying. Like, she's just so much fun, like, just got such childish joy. almost goofy in a way. But this is controversial, I feel like. I don't know if I could really see her as autistic. I'm not sure, because I obviously, like, looked up autistic characters for this, like, video, and she actually came up a lot. I'm not sure if, like, the creators have confirmed she's, like, autistic or neurodiverse, or if it's just headcanon. Like, I'm trying to think of certain traits she might have that, like, makes her seem, like, autistic or whatever. Like, this is, I think, where we kind of get into potentially what could be seen as, like, harmful territory, where any, like, quirky or weird character could be, like, labeled as autistic, which, you know, obviously isn't true for every autistic person. We're not all like quirky or weird. I feel like I definitely am, but you know, not all of us are. Like, if you're somebody who like sees yourself in Mabel and as an autistic person can really relate to her, or even as any neurodiverse person can really relate to her, like, that's great, and I would never want to take that away from you, but I'm just really not sure if I could see it. So ultimately, where do I put her? I might have to put her in B, because I really like her as a character. Again, she's one of my favorite Gravity Falls characters. But that kind of wasn't the point of B. The point of B was kind of, you know, do they get representation and being a character? Are they okay at both those things? She's, I think, a really good character. I wouldn't say she's bad representation. I can't personally see her. Ultimately, I think I'm going to put her in B. So, yeah, Nez, Mabel, and B. Generally, if you're somebody that, like, sees Mabel as really, like, neurodiverse, let me know in the comments, because, like, I would generally love to know, like, why you think that. Now, it probably is reasons that I'm just forgetting, but I just personally can't see. Okay, so next up, we have probably one of my favorite characters in fiction, and a perfect way to finish the tier list, Obed Nadir from Community. Firstly, as a character, he's just great. I don't know if I can just relate to him, because, again, I'm autistic, he's autistic, in case you can tell after watching this whole video. But yeah, fun fact about Obed, he's actually part of the reason why I took film studies as one of my GCSEs, because he had so much fun with it in the show. I was like, yo, I want to do that, and then I picked it. I also love how in the show, Obed actually is never confirmed to be autistic or not. I believe there's almost this tongue-in-cheek line when he's like rapping or something, and he says, on the spectrum, none of your business. So it's like, yeah, you know, if you don't want to tell people that, yeah, that's perfectly valid. You can like keep it a secret if you want. Also, I mentioned as I was talking about Rick, but the creator Dan Harmon, I'm pretty sure, did say that like writing for Obed and Rick like kind of made him realize that he was autistic, which is very wholesome. But yeah, I honestly can't say much about Obed, because he's just like such great representation. I love him as a character. You know what? I will actually speak about it a bit. In terms of like, again, he's like one of those great characters because it shows autistic struggles in not like a mocking way or a pitying way, but in like a way where it's just like, yeah, we do have some struggles. Like the episode, I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one where like Troy's leaving the show. For those who don't know, like, one of the characters who's like Obed's best friend, Troy, he's like having to leave the show, and basically Obed starts this game of like floor is lava, because essentially like he plays games to like help with reality, and then at the end of that episode, one of the other characters, Britta, has to realize like the love is real for Obed, because he's so like terrified of like Troy leaving that he can't like face the future, so he wants to like stay in this game forever essentially. And like we really see like those lines blur between like reality and his like imagination for him in like a very realistic way, where it's not like mocking autistic people. Again, it's not pitying them, as I said, but it's like just generally showing that yeah, we do have some struggles. So yeah, I think like Obed has to be S. Like I can't really see anyone like disagreeing with that. But ultimately, that's my list. Let me know what you thought about it, and leave your like list in the comments, I guess. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.